Hello, Acidic Eye Hellgear. Remember back in the winter when I posted my penguin deck, I had said I was going to give you guys 2 wintry themed deck profiles? Well, this Rikka deck profile is the second of those 2 DPs on the wintry theme. I would have posted this earlier, but ban lists adjustments. And for a water plant-based deck, it's actually pretty fun. And a lot of people are posting Rikka decks because plant combo. So, here is my take on the build. As always, be sure to like, sub, and bell for more. And because we are getting more plant support, this will be getting updated. So, 2 things to note before counting the cards on this. 1, the Rikka monsters are based off of plants that can withstand the cold. And with the exception of Petal here, all of them have even number of stars. And 2, many of the monsters have a mirror twin complex. I run 2 Petals in the deck. The case can be made for 1, but I like the feel of 2 anyway. If you control no monsters during the end of your opponent's turn or all plant monsters, she special summons herself from the graveyard, and once per turn you can take a Rikka monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or foolish burial it to the graveyard. So in a sense she's like a main deck version of Sylvan Princess Sprite. More on that when we get into the extra deck. Next up we have 3 copies of Mudon the Rikka Fairy, and 2 copies of Rikka the Rikka Fairy. Now, this is that mirror twin issue that I was talking about before. Notice how one of them is on one side of the card and the other the opposite side. Well, they have that not just in card appearance, but also in stats. As you can see, Mudon has 1,000 attack and 2,400 in the back, while Rikka has 2,400 attack and 1,000 in the back. You contribute a plant monster to special summon Mudon the Rikka Fairy from your hand. And when she's special summoned by the effect of a plant monster, including herself, you can add a Rikka spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Really good Rhoda action there. And Rikka is the N-archetype Honest Neos when any of your plant monsters is involved into an attack. You pitch her, you get 1,000 attack and defense for the rest of the turn. Also, if a plant monster is tributed while this card is in the grave and outside of the damage step, you can special summon her from the graveyard in defense. I think it's defense. Is it defense? Nope. It's not in defense. Oh yeah, it is in defense. Excuse me. You can special summon her from the graveyard in defense, but banishes herself when she is removed from the field. So that's the first set of the twins. Next up, I have 1 Snowdrop, the Rikka Fairy, and 2 Hellbore, the Rikka Fairy. At a later date, I will probably increase my Snowdrop count to 2. Like Mudon, you contribute a plant monster to special summon Snowdrop from your hand into defense position, but with Snowdrop, you can also take another plant monster. However, you're locked into special summoning plants for the rest of the turn. Also, once per turn, she can target one of your plants, including herself, and that's the good thing about these cards. They can always use their effects based off of themselves, and change the levels of all the plants on your board by the targeted plant's level for the turn. This is one of the ways the deck can manipulate levels for your Xyz plays. Hellbore the Rikka Fairy is like the N-archetype hand trap. If you control the Rikka monster, she acts like Effect Veiler. And when in the graveyard and a plant is tributed outside of the damage step, you can special summon her from the grave, but again, banished when she leaves the field. Of course, in defense position. Next up, 2 copies of Primula the Rikka Fairy and 2 copies of Cyclamen the Rikka Fairy. More level manipulating at its finest. So, if a monster you control is tributed outside of the damage step, you can special summon Primula the Rikka Fairy from your hand. And then you can target up to 2 plant monsters on your board and raise their levels by 2 for the turn. Cyclamen also manipulates levels by 2 on her effect, except she lowers the monster's levels by 2. You can also tribute this card from your hand or face-up field to do so. And of course, if this card is in the graveyard when something was tributed, you can special summon it. The recursion is really great for these guys, but the recursion from the graveyard means they get banished when they leave the field. You're not going to lower your levels by 2 often, but it is nice to have some more level 4 targets. So our level 4 plant fairies actually get a lot of work done. I play 2 copies of Evil Thorn. I would play a 3rd copy if I had one, but hey, Ghost from the Past is reprinting it as an ultra rare, so maybe on a later date. You contribute this face-up card to inflict 300 damage to your opponent, which is a cost, and then special summon up to 2 more Evil Thorns from your deck in face-up attack position, but their effects are negated. This is one of your ways to going into, if you have the 3, you'll tribute 1, burn your opponent for cost, pull out the other 2, and then again you have another way of going into Sylvan Princess Sprite. If not, you can always use them for tributes for your Link plays. To Lone Fire Blossom. We all know how good this is. All plant duelists know how good Lone Fire Blossom is at once per turn. And Lone Fire Blossom special summoning from the deck works very well with Fairy Archer Inganar. Remember the name Inganar? We'll talk about that name a little bit later. If Inganar is special summoned, it cannot attack on the same turn. Also, if it's special summoned by the effect of a plant monster, you can revive a level, 5 or 6 or higher? Now, 6 or higher plant monster from the graveyard. Again, you're locked into special summoning plants for the rest of the turn, but that's not too big of a deal. Being able to tutor out Fairy Archer Inganar with Lone Fire Blossom is still a fun play to work with. The last monster in the deck is another plant favorite staple, the World Carat Weight Champion. Again, you can work this out with your Primula and your Cyclamen, and of course, graveyard action. Spell game, ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 copies of the Rikka archetype Rhoda Glamour. You can also tribute a plant monster when you activate this card. You essentially are Rhodaing a Rikka monster from your deck to your hand. And if you tributed a plant when you activated this effect, you can add another plant monster from your deck to your hand that is the same level as the Rikka you added, but a different name. So a good example of that is with Cyclamen and Primula. You can use the effect and you can add Primula to your hand. And if you've tributed a plant, you can also add Cyclamen to your hand, or World Carat Weight Champion to your hand. Rikka Rhoda is an oat, however, so keep that in mind, 1 per turn. Two copies of Rikka Flurries. If a monster is tributed, you can make your opponent tribute a monster of their choice. That effect is, of course, once per turn. And once per turn, during your opponent's end phase, if you control a non-plant monster, this card is destroyed. That last part never comes up, but being able to force your opponent to give up one of their monsters by tributing is interesting enough. And remember, it is tributing their monster, not destroying. Another Rhoda that I play in this deck at 2 copies is Super Solar Nutrient. On activation, you tribute a plant monster. Then you can special, well, not just any plant monster, a level 2 or lower. So Evil Thorn, Rikka Petal, they work very well with this. Then you special summon from your deck a plant monster whose level is equal to or lower than the level of the tributed monster plus 3. So if you pull out either Evil Thorn or Rikka Petal, you can special summon a level 4 plant from your deck. So again, Primula, Cyclamen, World Caratweight Champion. I run 2 copies of Water Hazard. This is like the water deck's best friend enabler. Once per turn, if you control no monster, special summon a level 4 lower plant monster from your hand. That can actually get your plays going really well with, again, Cyclamen, Primula, or even Rikka Petal. I run 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone to blow the back row. We all know how that works. Moray of Greed at 2. This is my draw spell. You'll probably replace it with Pot. Rikka Petal and Evil Thorn are 1-for-1 targets, simply enough, and it works just the same. I run 1 copy of Rose Bell of Revelation. This lets us Rhoda a plant monster with 2400 attack or more to our hand. So essentially that gets you Erica, that gets you Hellbore, that gets you Fairy Archer Inganar. And then on a different turn, you can banish this from your graveyard and special summon from your hand one of those very plants. So it has 2 uses in the deck. Call by the Grave and Monster Reborn, we know how these cards work. Everybody is playing these. One thing I found out is that you'll go through your resources quickly, so Pot of Avarice giving you some back to your deck is a very useful recursion choice. Trap game, you guys. And we have 2 copies of Rikka Sheet. I know some duelists in the plant world of the Rikka play only 1 copy of this and 2 copies of the next card, but Rikka traps are oats. Anyway, you tribute a plant monster. Then, what is this? Yeah, you can tribute a plant monster also when you target one of your face-up opponent's monsters. The opponent's monster can't activate its effects for the turn. And if you tributed a plant when you activated that, you steal the opponent's monster and it becomes a plant monster. Really good manipulation if you ask me. And again, it's an oat, so you can't double up on this. One copy of Rikka Tranquility. Again, you can also tribute a plant when you activate this card. Special summon a Rikka monster from your graveyard in defense position. And if you tributed a plant as well, you can special summon another plant monster from the graveyard, also in defense position. And lastly, I have 2 copies of Wall of Thorns. This essentially is Mirror Force if you control a plant monster, which isn't too hard to have. Extra deck time, you guys. We have the 1 copy of Sylvan Princess Sprite. Just like Rikka Petal, you detach, you excavate the top card. Monsters go to the grave, spells and traps go to your hand. It is once per turn. 2 copies of Rikka Queen Strenna. This is actually a really interesting rank 4 that Rikka decks don't really like to play. On detach, she is a Rhoda for a Rikka or a plant monster. And if she's tributed while having Exceeds material, you can Exceed summon a rank 5 or higher plant monster from your extra deck, and then attach Strenna to said extra deck plant as material. And of course, both of these effects are once per turn. Really useful when it comes to the big girl plants, like Kanzashi the Rikka Queen, which I also run at 2. I may drop this to 1 since the other one rarely comes up. If a monster is tributed except during the damage step, you can detach a material from this card, then target one monster in either player's graveyard. You special summon that monster with its effects negated, and it becomes a plant. Also, if a plant monster would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can tribute a plant monster from your hand or field instead. So the protection that it gives your cards is also another useful play that you can go into. One copy of Fairy Knight Inganar. We have Fairy Archer in the main deck and Fairy Knight in the extra deck. Like DB Yu-Gi-Oh!, I don't understand why it needs 3 materials to go into. Not a hard task, by the way, but it uses 2 materials to bounce every other card off the field. That's right, this essentially bounces the rest of the board and it's spell speed 4, so your opponent cannot respond. Swing at your opponent for 2200, set your board back up, and end turn. One copy of Teardrop the Rikka Queen. You can detach a material from this card, then target a monster on the field and tribute it. If you have plant materials as Exceeds for this, it is a quick effect. Now, note that you can also use this effect to tribute your opponent's monsters. And it combines very well with Rikka Flurries. You can tribute a monster. Maybe it's one of your opponent's monsters, maybe it isn't. And then Flurries comes in and your opponent has to tribute one of their monsters. And for each time a monster is tributed, Teardrop gains 200 attack and defense for the turn. Alright. If you tribute a lot of monsters during the turn, Teardrop can get really big. Now, I only have 1 copy of Teardrop the Rikka Queen. You're free to have a second copy, but I do like number 87 Queen of the Night a little bit more. So you need a 3rd material for Exceed summoning this one. Or you can tribute Rikka Queen Strenna while it has material and Exceed change for this. It has one of 3 effects that you can use in the turn as a quick effect. You can target a set spell or trap that your opponent controls, and while the Queen of the Night is on the field, excuse me, I'm having a seizure. The set back row card cannot be activated. You can target a plant on the field and flip it face down, or you can target a card and give it 300 extra attack and defense. Wait, is it and defense? Nope, it's just attack. So, where Teardrop can go to, 3 racks, you can get to 31, or the Queen of the Night can target herself and go to 3,500, which can take down some of the bigger bodies on deck. Now, when you're not locked into plant monsters, I do like to run my Galaxy Eyes package, like number 107. Being able to, at the start of your battle phase, detach and then shut off activated effects and return attacks to their original is a good thing. And after the effect is activated, any activated effects give Tachyon Dragon an extra 1,000 attack, and it can swing again. And a little bit of spice because it fits the stealing deal, Galaxy Eye Cipher Blade Dragon. Being able to steal one of my opponent's monsters after detach and literally call it Galaxy Eye Cipher Dragon with its effects negated is a wonderful thing. And either one of these guys can be rank up exceeds changed into Cypher Blade Dragon. However, if you use the original Cypher Dragon, when Cypher Blade Dragon is destroyed, it is special summoned from the graveyard. Now, instead of detaching to steal a monster, Cypher Blade detaches to blast a card on the field. For the links, we have the obvious link to Aromatherapy Jasmine, because it's plant and why not. Coral Anemone, because the deck is mostly water except for 4 monsters. And the recursion is nice. 1 Nightmare Phoenix, and finally 1 Nightmare Unicorn to wrap up the extra deck. So, that's my Rikka deck profile. It'll be fun to update this a little bit later. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. But for now, I take my cards to the box because I'm done. Bye-bye, everybody.